Happy Monday, everyone. Let's get into the nitty-gritties of this week's presentation. So it was week one action in the MTN Fast Super League, and of course, we had a lot to chew on regards Continental Club competition. Nkana in action. The same can be said about Zanaco and Zesco United. Green Buffaloes, of course, bowed out of the Continental Games the other week. But yes, it was time for the three to see if they can make good. From our report card, only Zesco United won their game or their tie. They continue in the CAF Champions League for Zanaco, then the Confederations Cup. So we talk about that and more. But week one action saw us going to the Edwin Imboila Stadium as Nkwazi had a date with Napsa Stars. Helping me to bring you match analysis on this one is Muhammad Fati. Muhammad Fati, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
You've been quiet.
No, I'm around.
Unattached.
I'm around.
Unattached so far.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's get into the nitty-gritties, the bone and meat of this game that was played at the Edwin Imboila Stadium on Saturday afternoon. So it was Napsa Stars visiting Nkwazi in the Lusaka Derby. Let's have a look at the lineup. So it was Linos Makwaza versus Albert Mpande, the coach for Nkwazi. So let's just have a look at the two selections, shall we? So Nkwazi went 4-1-1 with Jacob Mpeta playing the leading striker role and Edward Mwamba playing second striker. And Nkwazi and Napsa on the other hand went for a 4-1-3-2 with Ishmael Dunga and Luka Lungu leading the line. Of course, there always have the thought of a team that comes up against a team that's playing a ball-shaped 4-4-2 and the other one that is playing a diamond shape. What were your expectations of this game, seeing that it ended 0-0?
I think it's a similar formation, and I think it was a bit tie. This is why the game is ended draw. Always the diamond shape, it shows a bit more aggressive in the attack, but I think if you look at the profile of the two teams, I think draw it's a fair result.
Yeah, but when you think about it, always when you're playing a diamond, the fear is that when the diamond is shrinked, you leave space in the wide areas, and if you still expand it, you leave too many spaces in the middle. Is it your kind of formation from experience?
No. The diamond is good for the security during the attack, but also it got a problem in the defense. If the two winger they didn't drop back very fast to assist the defensive midfield and the attacking midfielder in off the ball, that is a danger. If they are too slow, it means it will be a problem for the opponent, for them, the opponent to take advantage. The straight forward also it's also good when you are building a line and you're moving as a compact, but also if the opponent they are very good in the deep pass, one ball it can beat the whole line, and now to be too much dangerous for the team, the one because defensive midfield player is already very close or in the same line with the attacking midfield, so one ball can beat both of them. Now you find yourself head to head with the striker.
Anyway, those are tactical dilemmas that coaches need to deal with on a weekly basis. So let's talk about Nkwazi in attack now, shall we? And in particular reference to their left attack. In the first half, we noticed something that Stewart Chikandio, the shirt number 10 on the screen, would actually veer into the left-hand side of the pitch where he would create tactical overloads with Eric Chomba, the number 8, and Mwilambwe, the fullback, would actually come and create those numbers. But most importantly here, there was a bit of a problem now for Napsa Stars, is that in Nkwazi doing this, Rapson Piri is the attacking midfielder for Napsa Stars. He's actually picking up Stewart Chikandiwa, and Dixon Chapa as well is also trying to keep virtue and try to see if he can pick up Chikandiwa and probably Edward Mwamba when he comes into space. But they were creating those tactical overloads. But probably their biggest failure, Nkwazi, in this game is that, yes, they're getting through those positions, but when you look at the right-hand side of the pitch, you had Gilbert Tembo, a left-footed player who's usually playing left back or left midfield winger, was playing on the right this time around. And yeah, he would try to take the ball to the left-hand side and maybe just killing the width that Nkwazi probably needed to stretch the Napsa defense, Coach Fat.
I think the way they try to sack the defense for Napsa in one side like this, they can make the switch. But also the players, you said the player is left foot. So if he didn't, how is going to control the ball? Because if the ball misses left foot, it means he has to go to the right. It means now he have to play the role of the wing, or he can shoot. But if he shoot, he's using the weaker leg, the weak leg, not the strong leg. So it's shrink the attack for Nkwazi. This is why there is no breathe, because all the movement is from the defense of Napsa. So that's one also the issue that one help Napsa also to control the final third and to clear the ball from Nkwazi.
Yeah, perhaps that was a problem that they needed to deal with. And again, Jacob Mpeta playing his first game for Nkwazi this year, just going to the blind side a bit. But yeah, too much congestion there, and they can't seem to bring him into the game because of the amount of congestion. Now he's your center forward, but he's busy trying to pull defenders to the left or to the right. But again, for Edward Mwamba to go up into midfield and drop back in time and create that number or that player that is at the penalty area spot proved to be a little bit problematic in this game.
Because it is like what I told you, you can't stretch the defense for Napsa. So obviously all the movement is front of the Napsa defense. So it's easy for Napsa defense to clear the ball. Even if you play the switch, it won't reach that far end. So you have to involve the attacking midfielder. But if the attacking midfielder is already take a side, left or right, it means you already lost the concept of the attack.
Anyway, let's talk about Napsa Stars in terms of their attacking pattern now. Because of the possession that Nkwazi had, a lot of goal kicks were born in this game. And let's just talk about Kashmir. Of course, he's a Cameroonian international. He was in the Chan squad that competed earlier on this year in Morocco for the Indomitable Lions. Now, here's the number 32 on the screen there. And let's just discuss the ball distribution a bit. And the intentions of what Napsa were trying to do. So Napsa are playing with Ishmael Dunga up top, and it's 2v1 in the defensive areas against Michael Walia and Kelvin Amor. And in the central areas, you quickly see Chikandiwa coming deep to actually choke Luka Lungu out of the game. So number 10 versus number 10 there. And Nyirenda Noah is actually picking up Rapson. And all the time, that cover screen or that cover that shadow cover that Chikandiwa makes is that if the ball beats Chikandiwa, it's probably beating Dunga as well. And Kevin Amor is actually getting that ball. In terms of distribution of the goal kicks, because now this was very important for Napsa because they seldom did they play out. Yes, they did in patches, but they had problems. So that long ball needed to be very good.
That long ball, it has to be perfect from the goalkeeper direct to the player. And if the player he failed to control the ball, you can't win the second ball. And if you can't win the second ball, you can't possess in the final third of the opponent, and you can't finish the attack. Or you start rebuild pressure. You start rebuild your pressure, or building the pressure on the opponent. So now that long ball from the goalkeeper, it's idea for counter. Some team they took it as idea for counter, just from the goalkeeper direct to the striker. Then the winger is involved in the attacking midfield. All the players come from behind. Now they play with the second ball and they start pushing inside the box.
Don't you think now Napsa Stars will become a little bit predictable in that, yes, they've got Ishmael Dunga, they expect him to win those aerial balls. They toss a long ball to him, puts it down, gives it to Luka Lungu, and Luka Lungu can then begin to do things. And probably Albert Mpanda and Nkwazi figured this out even before the game started, that that's what they were going to try to do. And they were simply chalked out and they failed to play. Do they need a lot of variety in terms of how they utilize this tall top man who's actually going to win you a lot of balls in the air because of his height? But he came up against two towers in Stewa Chikandiwa and Kevin Namo.
I think the long ball between the striker and the defender is always 50-50. So the best way, they have to change. They have to start building back from behind. They have to start the game from behind goalkeeper. Most of that, they can use it also from the goalkeeper direct to the striker, but this is not the main tactic for the game. The main tactic has to start build up from the defense line. Now you have to involve the midfield line, then you progress to the final third. This is a compact game, you play decent game, and you make sure the ball is in your foot, passing from player to player. But from the goalkeeper on the air to the striker, you can't guarantee the striker will win all the ball. Even if you win all the ball, if the support is too slow, or the second striker or the attacking midfielder or the winger are too slow to win the ball, they will lose it. Then end of the day, you find yourself under pressure when you try to stretch. Even if there is another team is very good, controlling the ball fast and they build the counter on the right and on the left of the ground, use the width, they can score a lot of goals in Napsa. So they have to be careful in that tactic also.
All right, so let's just have a look at the devil in the detail in terms of the map, in terms of distribution. He looks to be a very good player. The Napsa Stars goalkeeper Kasmir, of course, the Cameroonian international. When you just look at the map in terms of the distribution of those goal kicks, you actually notice that Kevin Namo actually wins most of them. He got a few into Dunga, and of course Stumbeko got one in terms of the balance of play. But again, from an Napsa Stars perspective, you probably hope that they would have done a little bit better in that regard, getting the ball to Dunga and Dunga getting it down to Luka Lungu and bringing him into the game.
Yeah, of course, I'm telling you, if the striker win the ball and give it to Luka Lungu, and Luka use the winger and finish the attack, it looks good. Okay, but what about if you lose the ball? Because you can't guarantee. Okay, the defense for Nkwazi is very good. We know this from last year. But now, the end of the game is 0-0 between the two sides.
Tough one, tough one. Let's talk about another phenomenon in this game. Of course, it didn't give us goals, but let's just continue discussing the tactical intricacies of this game. Now, you will notice on the screen when it comes to this duo, Chikandiwa versus Rapson Piri, you notice that Chikandiwa would actually come very deep, collect the ball, and move forward and make that run. And now the dilemma for Napsa Stars is that the number 8 Rapson Piri seems to be tracking him when of course you've got Chapa, who's actually picking up Edward Mwamba, who's coming deep as well. So right now, both of the two central midfield players for Napsa Stars are actually busy man marking, and that's giving chance for the likes of Eric Chomba to get time and space on the ball in the wide areas and probably try to even put in a cross for the attackers. But again, we didn't get any goals because, again, Nkwazi couldn't land most of their crosses in this game.
I'm telling you, this is the issue. The two teams, they mark each other. They depend about the second ball or the support from the midfield to the strike force. So this is ended 0-0. So they're playing the same way. There's no too much difference.
Yeah. Anyway, that's probably one for deep thought. But what do you think in terms of man marking and trailing, especially in midfield where there's a lot of space, and whilst you're chasing this player who's dragging you everywhere, where does your cover come from? And classic example is Rapson Piri versus Chikandiwa, where Chikandiwa is deciding to pull his marker to the left-hand side of the pitch, and the anchorman is marking the second striker, stop him from playing. And the other space, again, that comes up on the screen, Gilbert Tembo finds himself in acres of space, but again, Nkwazi can't get him into the game. And if at all he gets on the ball, he's left-footed and he's playing on the right.
I think it's lack of concentration also from Quasi. Didn't utilize the space, because the player he has to utilize the space. But like what I told you, most of the time the two teams, they're very close to each other, they mark each other, so there is no changing position among the players. Like this, they can lose the marker and they start now break the defense line or start pushing, make through pass on the right or through pass on the left. So that it makes complicated for both of them.
Let's talk about Gilbert Tembo's match play in this game, because of course he was given a starting berth on the right hand side of the pitch. But you quickly notice that whilst Nkwazi are creating tactical overloads on the left hand side of the pitch, he finds himself in acres of space and he tacks in, comes into the central areas. And the best part about his positioning then is that the number 3, Boyd Mkandawire, can't track him, because if he goes with him, that means he creates that space on the right hand side, on the blind side. That positioning was great, but again, probably Albert Mpanda and Nkwazi will be disappointed that they were not getting Gilbert Tembo into the game and into dangerous play, because if he makes that run straight into the 18, maybe there's a chance for a switch play, a cross from his opposite winger to go all the way to the other side of the pitch and probably see if they can get a goal. But how easy or difficult is it to get that?
Now here you need individual player, midfielder. He can dribble. You give him the ball, now he can dribble, then he can give Gilbert. Because if you don't have this player, it means you are playing pass. And when you play pass, okay, everyone they mark each other. So it will be too many miss pass. And now the attack go to the opponent.
Yeah.
Start now getting the ball from you and attacking you. So we are repeating the same
drill. Anyway, let's talk about the evidence of Nkwazi's attacking prowess in this game. Let's have a look at Nkwazi's cross map in this game. And you quickly notice, Coach Fati, is that Nkwazi get a lot of crosses on the left-hand side. Almost 9 on the left-hand side. And only 3 on the right-hand side. And yes, it was because Jacob Umpeta would pull wide and try to get in across and try to get the big guys on the ball. There's probably a fundamental question, is that whilst you want Stewart Chikandiwa to pull the Napsa midfield into the wide areas and create that space, which they're not using, probably need a bit of penetration in the central areas, don't you think?
Yeah, this is what I'm telling you. If you take them to the left, then now you want, what do you want to make? You want to make the switch, you have to have the midfielder to drop the ball for him to make the switch, or for him to start pushing and start shooting on target. So if you don't have this player, or this player has been marked already, you lose the dangers.
Yeah.
So what you're going to do now, you have to depend about, as an individual, as a player, are they good in the short passes and the small area, like this they can break the opponent 1-2, then they can finish from the same side. Or if they doesn't have this ability, it means you have to go back like this for one player in the midfield, or even the libero to make, or the center back to make the switch from the left to the right. So now it's not there. It means
makes very difficult. Probably let's talk about Napsa's attack, because when they were losing the contest in terms of those aerial battles, Dunga was not winning many of them and giving them much joy in an attacking sense. Let's now dissect the play-out attack that Napsa had. So Napsa starts play-out attack, and this is what would happen. Of course, Napsa would do a medium press. They wouldn't be very aggressive. They wouldn't engage a lot of men on the ball going forward. But you quickly notice, like in the situation we put on the screen, Andrew Banda, the fullback, gets the ball, sees Dixon Chapa is free and in space, and Edward Mwamba has given him a little bit of space to actually breathe. He gets him there, and you need now to credit the position awareness of the number 12 on the screen, Stumbeko. Now, this was the man who made Napsa Stars a little bit dangerous as they went forward, because right now when Stumbeko gets the ball, it's time to put in a cross and make Dunga try to head into the Nkwazi net, as opposed to trying to get the ball, put it down, and try to bring in Rabson Piri, maybe Austin Banda into the game, because of the height that Nkwazi had in their play. What do you make of how Napsa played in terms of getting Stumbeko on the ball? It's a pity he didn't finish the game as well.
Yeah, you see, he's a good player and he's very sharp. But like what I told you, when the first ball for Napsa, it's high ball. For you now to bring the ball down and to set the team to attack in the final set, it takes a bit of time. So with this delay, Nkwazi was already dropping and start marking. So now it's with question mark, how we're gonna finish now, because we have already marked. So this is why the difficult, the one Napsa defined to finish the game. Because even the player, the striker, is already his back to the goalkeeper. So he doesn't have time to turn and start now making 1-2 and start finishing.
Yeah, but probably if we look at the cross map for Napsa Stars in this game, it will probably give us some evidence about how they tried to play and generally how they tried to make their attacking engine. Or now let's look at the cross map as it were. Now 3 crosses from practically the center circle area. Now this is basically Boyd Mkandawira, Alex Mwamba when Napsa Stars push up the pitch. But yeah, a bit of a balance. When Stumbeko gets on the ball, they get 4 crosses on the left side of attack and 4 on the right hand side of attack. And if you look at the zones, yes, it wasn't that bad. They would get into the final third for Nkwazi, but again, landing it on Dunga, and again, your second striker is not for the aerial ball.
For him to also like what I told you, for him to correct his position takes time.
Yeah. So how do you attack now? Again, it brings me back to the fundamental question: is that both teams didn't actually use the middle of the pitch to construct most of the attack. Both of them were going wide. Both of them were trying to ping a long ball.
It's a static attack for the position of the player. They don't change position like this. They can create a space. So that is the issue. So they have been marked already. So even when you make the cross and the ball is landing in the 18 area, the player is marked.
But this is the problem. How does the center forward feel now? It's not working like that. And even the substitutions that come in.
It will not be comfortable to score.
How do you deal with such a situation? And I'm looking at players like Mpeta himself. He's up against Alex Mwamba and Bernard Mapidi, very top players. And for Dunga, so yes, he's tall, but he's up against Michael Warrior and Kevin Amo. But Kevin is very tall. Chikandiwa is helping him in terms of making it very difficult to land a pass on him. But even when he tries to run away and go to Michael Warrior, you've got Stella Chikandiwa, who's not very far and wants to cut that ball before it gets to him. What should both teams do? Because this was their game plan in their first game.
No, like what I told you, they have a lot of work on the tactic aspect, and I'm sure the next game they will show us something different.
Do you subscribe to that thought? I was speaking to someone earlier. I said, no, week 1 fixture, you don't take it too seriously. It's not a strong indicator. Do you agree with that? That
no,
week 1 is
every game in the league. It's very important. And whatever you did in the premium, in the pre-season, it's reflected in the first 5 games.
And does it help the general confidence and what the team wants to achieve in that particular year?
Of course, when you have a good start, it gives confidence to the player, to encourage them, and see also the result. Also, it was expected. Most 90% from the result it was expected, except one result, Belcon versus National Assembly. but the rest is been expected. But also if you look at the result, you feel like also the teams, some team they try, they started the first game and they're trying to make something despite the lose.
Okay. Now, let's just talk about Napsa's defensive reaction when it came to dealing with Chikandiwa and Edward Mwamba in terms of what they were doing. So, here's the response. You have a situation where Bernard Mapili now starts picking up Chikandiwa, who's coming from very deep, and Alex Mwamba is trying to pick up his namesake, Edward Mwamba. And right now, you've got the two central midfielders who don't have much height. That's Dixon Chapa and Piri. Now, I don't know, what do you do in a game that the opponent is trying to use that as a trump card? Do you now change the tactics from a Napsa Stars perspective, in that you now need to be winning the second ball a little bit more? Your number 6 is not the tallest of players, and he's competing with someone who's very tall.
Usually, the football, when you play in the Premium League, you have to have too many tactics in your head as a coach. If this one doesn't work, you have to make a change. You didn't need to make a change from the bench. You can even make a change from inside. Just change give instructions and change the game plan, or change the system of play. So this takes a lot of work from the coach in the pre-season, and if they didn't finish it in the pre-season, they have to try to see now during the first 3-5 games. They have to adapt his team, otherwise it will be difficult for the team to push after 5 games.
Zambia's Premier Analysis Show. That was our report card on Nkwazi versus Napsa Stars in week 1 of the 2018 MTN FAR Super League.